never sort of returned, sort of thing.
When did you find out he was missing?
Well, the boatswain actually, he said, do you reckon I ought to carry on waiting for the captain to come aboard, you know? So we all said, the whole crew said, you know, well, what's the good, you know? The tide's going out, it's a big 31 foot, and the drop, well, you know, he can't get aboard. There's not a gangway that'll go down to meet it, you see. And apparently, it was early morning, I think 1 o'clock in the morning, I think it was, that there was a hell of a crash on the side of the boat, and it was the gangplank. I said to the boatswain, I said, but how could my father, sitting on the gangway, could make himself 2 artificers to hold on to the gangway side? So he said, oh, Benny, he said, that's quite easy. He says, I'll show you. And he got a lanyard and he laid it down, crossed it over and twisted and put his hand through it and pulled it. He said, that's how you do it.
The suggestion being that your father sort of tried to swing himself across in some way on the gangplank. Is that was really
No.
true?
My father knew what they were going to do.
Yeah.
That's why he did that.
Yeah.
You see, the gangway in Guernsey had to have a crane. It's a crane to come along, lift it, and put it in position for our ship.
Right. Anyway,
you see, it was low water. It was a 31 foot tide. You had to look right over to see the ship down below.
the unfortunate, the very sad outcome was that your father was killed.
He was killed, and I accused him all the time.
Yeah. Because he, whatever actually happened, he hit his head on the side of the ship or the dock.
Well, he caught the side of the boat, the rib, like the beading all around, you know, stands out to keep the main ship over.
And
it
to this day,
underneath the boat and straight out.
Yeah.
And then he and his body are found on the gangplank, which is floating out on the tide. Is that right?
Well, what happened, there was such a noise, you see, the boatswain woke up and he got out and he found out there was shouting and Germans up above, and he said, he got the crew up and he said, well, come on, what's happened, you know? And they said, oh, man overboard, the Germans were saying, you see. So he got our lifeboat, our ship's lifeboat, into the water, and they were looking everywhere, and they saw the gangway eventually going out the pier edge with my father trailing behind.
Did the Germans use their searchlights? Did they put the lights on to look for
Oh,
it?
well, that I couldn't tell you, because they kept it quiet. I will say this for the crew, because I'd have been in a hell of a state, because they woke me up when once the boatswain said the doctor was on his way, you better come and see your father. And when I went up, well, all this was thrown in. Terrible.
Obviously the immediate result was that your father had to be returned to Jersey for a funeral, but you weren't sent back to Jersey. You and the boat were sent off to Alderney by the Germans.
They wouldn't let us come back.
No.
They sent us to Alderney. They asked us, they promised us to go to Alderney with these things that was urgently required. There was 2 farmers, I believe, remained in Alderney, and they wanted these things for cultivation. And that was the excuse they used. And when once they got us there, we couldn't move.
They kept you there for 10 days, 2 weeks, something like that.
It was going on, and in the end, Collins, who was the mate aboard ship, told the Germans that we're running out of water, we got no food left, we've got to get weaving and we've got to get moving. and he said, I'll get through to the mainland. And he came back within the hour, and he said, they're sending up a pilot to take the ship down through the Race of Alderney for you, and you'll be on your way. And we were on our way.
So you arrived back in Jersey. What happens then?
Nothing. Nothing.
The funerals happened?
It's all happened. It's all quiet. And of course I came back. I was the stirrer. Even my mother says, you're stirring. Now look, leave it alone. Leave, you know, I'm young, you know, my poor mother.
And that got you into trouble because you were talking to people and the Germans came knocking on your door.
So how long after your death, the death of your father, did the Germans come looking for you?
Oh, I suppose 2 or 3 months, I suppose. I never kept any details of that. It might be in that, but I don't know.
And so the Germans knock on your door, you're arrested, what happens?
They took me up to a place called Ben Riding. Well, it was Ben Riding, but I don't know quite the place. When you're a young man, you know, you don't think of these things. I know it was Ben Riding, and I went up, and
what did they say to you? What questions did they ask you?
I think you're being unnecessary something or something. I said, no, I'm not. And I said, you'll never change my mind. I said, you can do what you like. You can do like you did to my father.
And you were saying that they'd murdered your father. That's what
yes,
you were saying that to them.
Yeah. I told them it was a deliberate murder.
And did they threaten you? Did they warn you that?
Oh yes, they warned
keep your
me.
mouth shut.
I was, oh blimey, I was threatening the German right. I mean, yes.
So they released you, and what happened?
They took me back home.
Mm-hmm. And then?
And it was the next day somebody else came home to my mother, and because I forget what it was. Yes, it was the next day. They came to my mother and they said that when your son gets home, he's to get his clothing, all his clothing, what he wants, etc., and that he was going to be sent away. And I was taken down the pier.
Did they come to arrest you, German soldiers, or were you told to go to some particular place?
No, they took me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And who was this?
What did they have a car or something to take you? How did they take you?
No, I always had the motorbike. Yes, 2 soldiers, the driver of the motorbike, one at the back, and I was in. Yes.
In a sidecar.
In a sidecar. Yes.
Who were these soldiers? Were they just ordinary soldiers?
Just
or were
ordinary soldiers. Yeah. Just ordinary soldiers. They weren't even sailors, because I knew quite a few of the sailors through being on the ship, you know.
Was this the German field police, perhaps?
Yes.
It was?
Yeah.
The special military intelligence
well, possibly.
Yeah.
So you're down to the quay and put on a boat. Which boat were you put on?
I don't know. I forget the name now.
Was it a German boat, or wasn't it? It wasn't your own boat, wasn't the Spinell, was it?
No.
Were there others on board as well, other people being shipped?
Yes, there was 28 of us.
28.
Bad boys.
Do you remember any of them? Do you remember any of the names?
Douglas Tangley, Huggy Poole, John Corbell, the boy Butt-Eye. There was some I knew.
And where did they take you? They obviously landed you in France. Where did they take you? Saint-Malo or Granville? Or?
It was like wagons with seats in, you know, but the doors used to slide like that, you know. And And we started on our journey, and it took us days to get up into over Silesia, into Poland, to a place called Kreuzberg. Wonderful place. It was an evacuated asylum, and we were 4 men in a cell. Yes.
And you were there for how long?
Nearly well, all told, being away, it was nearly 3 years.
We're going to have to return to that aspect because that's your story. This little interview is really about your father's story.
Yes, I'm interested about my father. I'm not worried about myself, but I thought it was, you know, you get all these people that have been mentioned on that paper, and I've never seen anything mentioned of B.W. Bennett. And really speaking, he gave his life for this island.